likes machine guns.
I like machine guns. Welcome to episode 16.
Sweet 16.
I can't believe we haven't been kicked off. I thought we would get kicked off around 3 or 4, but...
Of the internet?
Of everything, yes.
Oh.
Sure.
16, and we still have people listening.
Well, I'm going to say probably north of 60.
Yeah,
So
60.
we're doing
climbing.
good.
60 listeners. Are you good with that, Jack?
That's fine.
We are super excited today to have Jack Donovan, The Way of Men author,
Yep.
book 1.
Becoming a Barbarian, book 2. I already forgot it.
More Complete Beast.
More Complete Beast, and then you got a new one.
Fire in
Fire
the Dark.
Yeah.
Fire in the Dark.
Yeah.
When will that be out?
It's out now.
Oh, it's out now.
Yeah, it came out like last month, something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Very
Did you throw
recent.
that on your website?
Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed it.
Yeah, no, it's on my website and Instagram. I haven't made like an ad yet
Okay.
because I've been too lazy.
Well, here it is.
there you
Here it
go.
is.
Yeah.
Here's your first ad. For our listeners out there, I discovered Jack Donovan a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Previous to Jack coming on, we had Josh Tyler. For those
Savage
of you,
Gentleman.
yes, and we got in pretty deep into some manhood issues, and then he recommended having Jack on. And since then, I've dove into your brain through these books, and have come to the realization that there are some things that are missing in our society today. And every one of our listeners, if you're not familiar with Jack Donovan and his work, this is your new homework assignment. I will judge you if you don't, to read at least the first book, The Way of Men, and then go from there.
And I would also like to say, and there may be, I'm not saying there is, but there could be other illiterate people tuning into this right now. You can actually listen to it on audio.
Yeah.
Through the actual voice of
Yes.
the author.
Yep.
So
You have a nice voice.
I try. You had to pick it up.
Yeah. So, The Way of Men.
Yeah.
handicapped or not, you have no excuse not to take that in.
One thing that we brought it up, or I mentioned with our podcast with Josh was, I think it was Josh, was a Mr. scale. And that scale, and totally rip this apart if you want.
Okay.
But that scale can be on one end of the spectrum, Mr. Rogers, who's got his place in society and he's done his things for children. He ministered to my heart when I was a young man. And then you got all the way to the other side of the scale is the grunting Viking.
Okay.
And one thing I encourage...
Mr. T.
Yeah, or Mr. T,
Go from
yeah.
Mr. Rogers to Mr. T.
Mr. Rogers, Mr. T. Find yourself on the Mr. scale and be that guy.
Where you at, fool?
Yeah. Be that guy and be unapologetic about it. Know who you are, be confident in who you are, and be that guy. And, you know, I gleaned a little bit of that, some essence of that in your books, but more on specifically of The Way of Men, of the problems in which we face today in our society, and the way that you illustrate those problems through what keeps standing out to me is the comparison between how chimpanzees operate versus how bonobo monkeys operate. And I've been calling the boys in the office a bunch of bonobos. And for those of you who haven't read his book, I don't know if you want to expand on that. Definitely, I think everyone listening will enjoy the ways that you compared that and how it illustrates society and today's way of life. I thought that was pretty amazing and convicting.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone likes that chapter. It's a standout for a lot of people because there's a lot of parts of The Way of Men that are basic man stuff, and there are a lot of guys starting at zero who really need that. They need, like, you know, day one, week one, whatever, hour one.
Like a
stuff.
beginner's course.
Yeah, because there's just a lot of things that they've been told that are wrong.
Sure.
And so they need some basic stuff. But yeah, for a lot of the guys who, you know, maybe been doing that kind of stuff for a long time, or raised a certain way or whatever, the bonobo chapter really stands out. And basically the idea of that, I was doing a lot of research on different books about masculinity, and there was an anthropological book. And it was cool because it was written by pretty left-wing dudes, and they seemed really disappointed that they came to this conclusion. Which was good, because that never even happens anymore. But they were scientists, and they're evolutionary psychologists, evolutionary biologists, and they studied, chimpanzees and bonobos. Now, we don't know whether maybe bonobos are actually more violent than they say they were, but there was basically a theory going on for a long time that chimpanzees lived in a highly competitive environment. And so, they lived in packs, tight, patriarchal packs, and small, basically gangs, and went out and because they had to hunt other chimps, other monkeys, other things, and they were very organized the way that human society has really been organized for most of human history. And then bonobos lived in this place where there were bananas everywhere, and it's so nice and it's so easy, and they had everything that they could ever want, and so they just all just hump each other. Yeah. And there's no the women kind of run everything, and there's no real power structure. Dudes don't know who their dads are.
Yeah.
It's just this really disorganized society, but they have everything they need, so it's okay. It's a very hedonistic society, and that's the way it's always portrayed. Whether or not when people go out in the wild and study chimpanzees and whatever, who knows what they actually see.
Well, and didn't you say
really
the chimps
yeah.
Operated in their packs with all male chimps, and then the bonobos it was a mixture of the males and the females, and then when push came to shove, when one pack of bonobos reached another pack of bonobos, the men kind of submitted and just let the ladies come in and then go into the other tribe, and the ladies would have sex with the other bonobo males, and the other bonobo males would kind of just shrug their shoulders
it's okay.
Whatever.
Whatever. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because their society really wasn't organized in that way. It was just a very female-oriented society, because they didn't have to worry about fighting. Mm-hmm. And societies who are threatened have to worry about fighting, and so they have to, the organization of labor using men for that job, it just makes more sense.
Yeah. It's very interesting. You don't really need to say much more, and every person, regardless of how blind or lost they are, can articulate that and really look and reflect on how society operates today, especially in Western culture. Because if you've traveled around the world or visited third world countries, it's very different. And it goes kind of back to that natural course of the chimpanzee. Mm-hmm. Say, I've been in some pretty deep spots in India, and the small communities operated more on that survivalistic attitude, where the women were a little bit more on the submissive side. They played their specific role. I don't know if submissive is the right word, but culturally that's the way it was. Right. But the way that the men interacted with the women and just kind of, that stood out big time for me, because they're, many centuries, or I don't know how, if I can throw a date on it, but they're pretty far behind civilized society today.
Right.
And so it just added a lot of validity to that, because it was just it's so true. And today, and you can expand on this too, men try to find their identity through these, shell of, options. I don't know how to phrase it. You probably can articulate it better, but, through video games and through Final Fantasy Football League,
right?
And just these substitutes that these dudes, that run around wearing other dudes' names on their back,
right?
Celebrating sports, and I'm not trying to make fun of anyone who's into that, but I kind of am at the same time, because that's really all that they have, and I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, I think your subconscious kind of needs that, but yet you don't actually act it out.
Yeah. I mean, basically everything is a substitute for war, right? Sports, generally, when you're actually playing sports, it's a substitute for war. Mm-hmm. And we've had sports for all of human history, because we can't be in a constant state of war.
Right.
And so, so let's keep the guys busy, keep them in the right headspace, and they can go out and wrestle each other, or joust or whatever. All through human history, that's what men have done. And in modern society, we get to a place where men don't really even play sports after like high school,
right?
Or maybe college, but usually just high school,
right?
And so everything is vicarious. Everything is like, well, my masculinity isn't tied to doing this thing where I compete with other men. It's tied to watching other men compete with other men, or it's or playing, a video game where I'm engaging in fake war.
Yeah,
and so then it becomes to like marketers can take advantage of that because like anything where you tap into that, whether it's like cars or anything you're selling to men, if you make it sound really scary, it's brutal, and I mean my company's called Brutal Company. I get it. My company's Brutal Company. I do. When I'm thinking about becoming I could have titled Becoming a Barbarian something else, but everyone wants to become a barbarian. So you have that when you want to tap into something that men respond to, in a way you're kind of selling them this ideal of masculinity. And whereas I feel like I'm selling them their actual real ideal of masculinity,
right?
You can use it to sell deodorant. That's what they, Axe body spray or whatever. You could
be like Gillette and go the complete opposite direction.
Right. And what's sad is that they made the best razors, and now I can't use them.
Yeah. Shame on you if you touch them.
Yeah. No.
Well, you need that competitive, kind of thing in there, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's cars and everything you speak of also has a certain amount of competition to it.
Yeah, if you're driving, if you're driving competitively,
or competing for the nicest one.
Oh,
or
100%.
Yours may be the fastest one, although you may not race it much like the video game. But when you park it in the parking lot, you're still winning the race.
Oh, that's definitely how they sell a lot of like good car parts.
That's right.
Snap-on. Mike competes to have the best tools. I would be hard-pressed to find anyone in the state of Utah that has a better tool collection than you.
I think that might be somewhat of a poor example. And I say that because I believe a person should get the very best tool that they can, and as many of them as possible. But your base use for those is generally to help other people. I mean, I use them for myself, but I've used them far more for other people than I've ever used them for myself.
You've
I just
helped me.
used some the other day for you, didn't I?
Yeah, my Harley that keeps falling apart.
Oh, I wouldn't say it keeps falling apart, but a few parts have fallen off of it, yes.
So you've done some pretty interesting research. You've even gone as far as joining a tribe.
Yeah.
I did talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Well, I try. There are guys who just write about masculinity like as a, just topic, and that's a lot of the guys who were doing it up to a certain point. Way of Men came out in 2012, and now you have your Jocko Willings and all these guys who want to talk about it because they realize it's a really big problem.
Right, it is.
But in 2012, still no one was really. It was just a kind of weird fringe internet thing, But I made the decision. There's a lot of guys who are just academics writing about it, and then they're just kind of like slumpy kind of academic dudes. Who what we really need is honor in society, and then they go back to be having hamburgers and just sitting around getting fat and whatever.
Watching sports.
Yeah. But I tried to be like, well, if I'm going to write about this, I should try to do as much of what I'm writing about because I went to art school.
Yeah.
I don't come from a background where I have a lot of that.
I didn't know that about you. I was in a fine arts major myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, emphasis in two-dimensional media.
Nice.
Ended up going the graphic design route, but I was a painter. Right. Still, I'm a painter.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. What did you specialize in art school? What was your
I did fine arts for a while. I never really finished, but
okay.
I did about 3 or 4 years.
Nice.
I just never, all the right credits never really lined up to finish it. But yeah, basically ended up going to fine arts as time went on.
Nice.
So when I looked at this stuff, a lot of it was me trying to figure it out for myself. and then coming to it from, I think, an outside angle like that, coming to it from like, there are a lot of guys who were raised in like middle America with guns and hunting and everything like that, and then they went to the military and did all the things.
Right.
And so they got blindsided, I think, by a lot of stuff that's happening in society right now, because the things I'm saying they already knew.
Right.
Or they just grew up, well, of course, that's how men act. But I went to New York City and Los Angeles and San Francisco, and so like where all that stuff was very much in question.
Right.
So I think that's one of the reasons why, like in The Way of Men, I was able to talk about some ideas maybe from a little bit of an outside perspective, and like just from a 1,000-foot view, let's look at what this really is. Whereas a lot of guys, will be like, well, it's like that country music song that I was, or like what my grandpappy said, or whatever, and so they can't really look at it from like that view.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why, it was successful and helpful.
Yeah, it's huge. Mike and I were both talking about how we were raised in a very similar environment by our fathers. My mother was left when I was 4. And so the coddling aspect of my life wasn't really ever present.
Right.
And so when I read much of your book, a lot of it made me appreciate, there were times in my adolescence into becoming a man where I would wish that I had a little bit more of that. But I look back on it now, and especially after reading your book and realizing, like, man, I had it pretty good. Because being an art major, I, too, experienced a lot of bonobo men out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it is an issue, and we see it more and more. Neighboring towns like Park City, it's just, it's in the neighborhood that I lived up in, Summit Park.
Or any place that a lot of people gather in a very large group, it gets that way in a hurry.
Yeah, and the closer you get to a university.
Yes.
Agreed.
Like in Salt Lake City, that's the thing. It's like, it's a pretty cool, chill place right downtown near the university, and then it's like, I don't even want to go there.
Yeah. It's exhausting, and it gives me a level of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that frustrates me the most about it is when I'm approached by somebody who lives in this society that we have, where there's plenty and you can run your mouth without repercussions. For instance, this woman in this, just moved to Sandy recently, was in a Smith's 9:00 in the morning, store's practically empty, getting coffee, and this lady comes up, 3 masks on, she's got her sweatshirt over her hands, pushing her cart. And I was like, oh gosh, look at this lady. And then she asked me where my mask was, and I was just like, I'm not wearing one.
Yeah.
And then she, at the top of her lungs, was just, fuck yeah. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And it was just a shock, because it's like, I outweighed this lady probably by 150 pounds, and 100 years ago, I could have just walked out of the store.
Quiet woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She knew you couldn't do that, though.
Or I could have been some psychopath. Or maybe I just lost somebody, and I was just waiting for an opportunity to just snap on some crazy liberal hippie.
Yeah.
But it's just this emboldened attitude where naturally, if we were knocked back 1,000 years, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, there's everybody's so protected that they've never had to deal with any kind of consequences for their actual actions. And so they're used to being able to talk to, I think the phrase I've used is like the primal math of violence. Like they don't have to do that math.
No.
Because the math is this Karen is going to go to the manager and complain about that the bad man is doing the bad thing. And then he's going to go like, oh, what to do with this? And then come over and have to be like, sir.
Yeah.
And they live in that world, and they've always lived in that world. And so, yeah, they just run their mouth and say crazy things. It's a trend with that particular subset of people that they use swear words in a really awkward way. Like when they're like, fuck Trump, bumper stickers, and fuck this and fuck that.
Yeah.
I don't walk around saying fuck you to people because they might hit me. You just don't, there's a way that you do that rather than there is like, fuck this and fuck that. Because it makes them feel powerful.
Yeah.
But they're not, it doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
There's nothing behind it.
There's no, I think it was in the way or becoming a barbarian is OODA.
Yeah, the OODA loop.
OODA loop.
Yeah. That's a big. I got that from shooting guys actually. Like,
Okay.
From a lot of tactical guys, and that's one thing that's been really cool is that I don't know how I managed to go to art school and write a book that like special forces uses, but that's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
How did I figure that out? You know,
Yeah.
I got a lot of guys that reach out to me and then want to, give me a little bit of training or do something like that, and I go ahead and talk to them, and the OODA loop I got from probably from my buddy Greg Hamilton, who is a former Green Beret who trained people up in Seattle.
And OODA is
observe, orient. God, now I'm looking dumb. It's been a long time.
No, I know.
Absorb, orient, and then decide, act.
Decide, act. Yeah,
I think,
something like that.
Yeah. Which is just a way that people think.
Right, and
really,
even in the
more than
basic
anything.
form,
Yeah.
in this situation, that lady is clearly not thinking like that.
Yeah.
Like, if these things come out of my mouth to the wrong person, what could happen as a result, and am I prepared for that?
Yeah.
Well, she has zero consequences for her actions, much like everyone has been programmed through or to do through the internet.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want, and I don't even have a clue what state this guy's in, let alone he's not going to do anything, and we're never going to actually communicate face to face or see each other. So who cares what you say?
Yeah, I mean, she really is doing the OODA loop, but her OODA loop based on her, I think there's a function in there where it considers the culture and the environment and all these other things. And so she's based on all of her knowledge of how the world works. Her OODA loop's fine.
Yeah,
Like, she knows she's going to win it because in reality, she is, unless you are psycho killer and that's just the day, she's going to win. And, I did it actually very similar scenario, not a lot of screaming, but I was in a bar up in Idaho and I was enjoying the freedom. There were all these people, it was before everything became free, like 2 days ago. But it's weird, like the world that everybody's like, okay. I was down in Moab this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Okay, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then, but I saw it up in Idaho, and it was like the first time you get to be in a crowded bar.
Yeah.
And just, like a crowded hotel bar or whatever. And there was a chick who came up and she was like, she had her mask on and then she was doing the thing and she was really rude to the bartender.
Sure.
There's a bunch of girl bartenders. I'm just sitting there having drinks and I'm like right beside her. And she's just openly obnoxious.
Yeah.
And then she goes back to her seat and starts filming them.
Oh, gosh.
Like she's going to complain to the manager and do the whole thing.
I'm going to put this on a review on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, so that basically what I did, I was like, I was sitting there, and that just pisses me off because before I was an author, I've had like every stupid job in the world. Like I've been a waiter.
Yeah, me too.
I've had like 37 jobs. So like just every dumb job that you could have. So I have a lot of compassion for people who work in all these dumb jobs.
Service industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've worked at Rite Aid, like just that crappy job that you have to get because you have to pay the bills. And so, I felt bad for them, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, so I wrote a Google review, like while I was sitting there with the girls' names who were at the bar, saying how great they were, or whatever.
Awesome.
And I showed it to them, and then they're like, "Will you sign a thing saying that you saw that?" Because they were sure this chick was going to try and get him fired.
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. But I guess I lost track of where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be talking about tribes.
I think. I think there was like some kind of escalated violence or something that was going to happen.
Yeah,
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
As you started that story.
No. I mean, that never happens. Or I'd be in jail with a charge right now.
Yeah.
So
you're not a well-behaved boy.
Yeah. I mean, I just got a speeding ticket on the way here. Like, yes, officer. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. There's so much to unpack here. I don't even know where to go next.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you asked about the tribe, and because I try to do what I say I want people to do, and in my own exploration of like, well, what would being part of a tribe really be? Mm-hmm. And I didn't pick the right one, and they were far away, and really not compatible for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. And the tricky thing I've learned is also with being a public figure. Then you're responsible for everybody in the tribe, and they're responsible for you in a way that if you're just some anonymous guys hanging out and we're like, hey, let's form a tribe and not tell anyone. Yeah, that's actually, a lot of people do that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, or let's like have a, you know, me and my buddies, we do this every Saturday. We're all on the same page. If stuff would happen, this would go. You know, this is what we're prepared for.
A lot like clubs.
Yeah.
Like motorcycle clubs.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. But then, you know, like I think the guys who I was hanging out with were a little bit too oriented towards motorcycle clubs, and so they wanted to have that kind of trouble. Yeah. And I was like, I don't need that kind of mess.
No.
And that's the thing too. Like I said, like as a public figure, then it's like if anyone in that group does something stupid,
you're
like really stupid, guess who has to go on CNN?
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
The leader of the pack.
Yeah, or just like the most known person,
right?
You know? And so I become responsible for all of them. So a buddy of mine said that I'm like Gandalf now. I'll just go ride into town, like start some shit. All right, what are you guys doing? Okay, I'll go over here and check on this other thing.
Yes,
and so that's better for me where I am. But I do strongly advise that. There is something really powerful that comes from a group of men who are like really on the same page and really that they know that they're going to be there for each other. And most guys don't have that. Most guys don't even have male friends.
No.
Like if you get into the cities and stuff like that, they have like a few male friends. Maybe they meet with their girlfriends at certain times, but they don't do any all male things. They don't have any kind of male support network. And I think that what's cool about the past year and all the shit that's gone down is that maybe there were a lot of women that realized that maybe men are good for something. And, you know, like when they were like, are we going to be able to have food? And, you know, like when they had that moment and, you know, what if it really goes down, you know? And, you know, it's also, I think a lot of men realized that they had no one to reach out to. And, and so I think that that's really important, you know, for men to have that.
I think
support system.
A lot of them also realized how ill-prepared in the take care of your family role that they actually had become through calling a man for every little thing because they're too busy, and then woke up realizing, I don't know how to fix my lawnmower.
Yeah.
If no one's around to fix it, like, we're not using it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people came to that.
Well, no, I think a lot of value you bring to your writing as opposed to some of these other academia types that just study is in line with the phrase "knowledge without miles is bullshit." And so, putting yourself in that scenario to learn, I guess, attitudes and behaviors and experience it really adds a lot of validity to what you're writing. Totally.
And I feel really good that I did it. I mean, I'm glad I'm not in it anymore with the same group. But I mean, I had to have a boxing match with with a couple of the guys. That was like part of the thing.
Bare knuckle?
No, not bare knuckle, but like boxing with guys who are untrained is almost equally scary. But you know, so I was going to like boxing lessons and whatever, and I had a couple of sparring matches, and that was. And as part of being in that group, like it was like once a year or so, I would have like well, this is a good guy for me to fight, so let's set this up for X amount of time. And now like I do more grappling.
Nice.
But I mean that was, I think it's really good for men to have to go through a thing where like, all right, this guy's gonna clean my clock if I don't get my stuff together by next week, and like actually figure, and actually work really hard for that, and so that was really initiatory for me, that I had to do that because I didn't grow up in a world where that had to happen.
Right.
I mean, I grew up in the suburbs.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a situation where that was going to go down.
Yeah.
And so I had to go and take boxing lessons and go train for that and do a lot of things that I maybe didn't want to do. And I think it's really good for men to have to do that.
Yeah.
You want to do that at the office, Rich?
I'm thinking about that right now.
I bet you are. Yeah. I was thinking about it as well. But
Tassin is victim number one.
With you and Tassin, what's the point for the rest of us? Why don't I just hit my head against the door?
Well,
call it a day.
That's the tricky thing about boxing. If you're going to have a group of men, is that if you want to have guys who know what level of the game that they're at, and because if you box with someone like Josh Tyler. And I actually have sparred with Josh Tyler, but I wasn't sure. I just met him, and I was like, this is going to go real bad because he's a professional MMA fighter.
Yeah.
And, he knows how to do it at 50%, at 40%, and like scale up or scale down to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to try and kill me.
No.
But I wasn't sure. So I was like, well, I guess this is
But he could if he wanted to go all out.
Yeah. Oh, it's for sure. So, with boxing, with any kind of striking like that, you really have to have people who know what's going on, or it just gets really crazy. Like I said, like untrained dudes, like
Haymakerville.
Yeah, and they could get lucky. You could be really, really good, and it just grazes right across there, and there you go. But
I worry about getting shot by a high point. Same thing.
If any of the listeners that are listening right now were on the football team with me, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call you out. I won't name any names, but my sophomore year of college, I was playing ball. I was the only football player in the art program, which was kind of weird.
It's actually not that weird, Rich, when you think about it.
It isn't weird now because you know me, I guess. They snuck me into a bar. This was my tribe, right? We were on a football team. We had camaraderie. We were, grunting Viking sportsmen, whatever. We also lived together. There was about 10 of us. And I was 20. They snuck me into this log. It was called the Log Cabin in Yelm, Washington. I believe it was Yelm. Logging town. And I get pretty hammered. And this guy, maybe 5'6", he's at the bar hanging out with this girl. And I didn't know they were together. I was pretty tossed. And she starts talking to me. And then he gets upset. It was almost like they were looking for trouble. And he says something to me, and I said, well, why don't you put a leash on your girl? And that set him off. So I was like, all right, let's go. I felt really confident because I had my boys with me.
Right.
10 strong, Yeah.
And
And so we went outside. He threw a couple of haymakers, gave him 1-2. It was over. He's on the gravel. I'm feeling like a champ.
Yeah.
I turn around, and he's got 5 of his other shift buddies with him. And that was lights out for me.
Yeah.
I went in swinging, took a couple of hits, and woke up on the ground covered in blood.
Right.
Broken nose, all the above. Then I realized the tribe I was with, the guys that I was with, that I called my friends, that I thought would have my back, that didn't step up, were not the guys I needed to be with.
Right.
So I think it took me like 3 weeks to break my lease and to move out. Some of them are still friends today, but I would never rely on them in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I looked back on and thought, like, a bunch of bonobos. They were kind of like, when I was reading that story about, like, you mentioned something about the male bonobo monkeys shrugging their shoulders. I was like, that was totally them. That was like the image that came in my head.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting there, trying to do my thing, Mr. Masculine, dumbass in a fight at a bar
right.
in the middle of nowhere, get knocked out. I'm like, those guys didn't have my back.
Yeah.
But I think they're also a product of our society. I kind of grew up in a little bit of a rougher environment where, you can tell when someone hasn't been hit.
Yeah.
If someone's running their mouth and the way that they're posturing, like there are some guys out there that talk a big talk and they bark pretty loud. And you can distinctly tell that they've never been humbled by a fist to the head.
Yeah.
Then there's other guys that you can tell have, and those are the guys you want to kind of, I guess, measure up or stay away from.
Yeah. What I guess they're the ones who care about their lives and the ones who don't, because that's also very scary. Dudes who have been punched a lot and then don't care.
No, yeah.
Because there are those guys, and those guys are wild cards because you just they're ready to die today.
Yeah,
because those guys have that.
Yeah.
But then there's other guys who have like been in some confrontations and they're like, I don't think we really need to do this. We could do it.
Yeah.
But probably not the best idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
and I've been in situations before where it's been that exact same case. Like, listen, dude, like you don't. You say you do, but you really don't. Like, let's just walk away from this and move on with our day. But I just think that's interesting because there's a lot more of the barking. You see it with these riots, and we're enabling it as a society. we're not allowing the police to do their job.
Yeah.
So we're emboldening a bunch of people to act violent and act this way without, order. I don't know.
When your weapon of choice is a skateboard, like a child's toy, I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the thing is that they can get away with that in the places in which they're doing that. I mean, obviously, I'm a refugee from Oregon. I'd like, I mean, when I left, I was probably an hour and a half outside of town. I wasn't like living in town, but I did live in town. I was a delivery guy there for like
Portland?
10 years ago. Yeah. So I actually loved Portland. It was fine. And then it got a lot worse. You had a lot of people from California move up, whatever, changed a lot of stuff over the past like 5-6 years. And then when all the stuff went down, that's one of the reasons why I left, is because I have no desire to go to that town anymore. And the reason why is because the district attorneys were basically in bed with the people rioting. And they would go on their own, they would go on podcasts with the people who were rioting, the district attorneys and stuff like that, and they'd catch and release them. And I'm like, well, I've written some books and said some things. If I defend myself successfully at a confrontation, I'm so going to jail.
Big time.
In that city. Yeah, I mean, and that's like, why would I go there? I don't feel unsafe because I feel like I couldn't do something. It's like some, whatever, like soy boys would come up and
soy boy
3 deep, like talk some shit, but I'm like, I feel, pretty comfortable. I could do something. But if I won, that's the worst thing I could do is win. Because
in that situation, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, and that's really, really scary because that is a complete collapse of law and order in any way that makes sense. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is really important to think about. I mean, but yeah, I mean, all those people they're being empowered by the state to do that. Like because we all know that we know some guys who could go in a team of like 8 or 10. And go in and clean up that riot could be over
quickly,
very done.
Yeah,
like very quickly. And but they're not doing that. So these guys can be like the lady in the store and just run their mouths and like, let's throw some things at some buildings, let's burn some stuff down. And man, that taps into a part of masculinity that I think that is when you're a young guy. Let's burn some stuff down for a righteous cause.
Yeah.
Like everybody around us is saying that this is what we should do.
Or
let's just break some stuff and hit some people.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at decades of just completely, what's the right term? I guess kind of subduing all of it. And then you get the opportunity to do the real thing instead of playing video games like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
You get to do the real thing, and it's like, free Nikes too.
Yeah. No, I had a buddy who ran a strip club actually in Portland, and he was sending me like video from outside because he's like, I have to do my own security now. I'm standing outside my strip club because like the police won't do it. They've told us that they won't come.
Jeez.
And so. There are people. It looks like Grand Theft Auto. Like there are people like doing wheelies and not wheelies. That's bikes. But like doing like burnouts and circles and all that stuff in the middle of the streets. They're throwing off firecrackers. It was like, like it looked like some post-apocalyptic scenario that but was actually that's been going on for the past like year. And so it's just pretty amazing.
I'm thankful for cameras.
Yeah.
Did you kind of get the feel when you came through town that would probably never happen there?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just got a ticket. I'm like, oh, it's 35. I mean, these guys are going 40, but I don't know.
Don't speed up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't exist either. I got pulled over on my bike, and there wasn't really much of a reason other than I needed to update my plates.
Right.
But this officer gave me the rundown for probably a good 15 minutes. He's like, listen, dude, like, calm down, Do you have a weapon? He asked me that probably 6 different times, and I actually didn't that day, which was odd.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't. You can search my bag, but they're strict out here.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Keeps the earth muffins at bay.
Yeah. Got to keep the riffraff down.
Don't want any of that riffraff out here.
So start the world, right?
Yeah.
Instead of restart, right? Because you've addressed a lot of issues in your books, and specifically with manhood and the way men operate in society today, as well as women's roles in that. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think you talked about this towards the end of your first book, right? Not restart the world. You start the world using a positive spin on it.
Yeah, that's been my slogan for a really long time, and I think Peter Fonda, I believe, is the one who said it. It's one of the Fondas, but the one who was in the motorcycle movie. But he had said it weirdly at like a Cannes Film Festival, and it was in the news. It was, and he was making a very weird reference to possible like insurrection, and it was like years. It was like during the Obama administration or something like that. It was like I'm teaching my grandchildren to use guns, and I don't like to say let's stop something, let's start something, let's start the world. I was like that is really weird coded reference that he was doing. That, yeah. But it was while I was writing the book, and I was like that's a good phrase, and over time it's just been becoming this really good slogan for me because there's so many people when you talk about like some kind of they're phrased conservatives, but I don't think that's a good word. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of people who, like we got to go back to something, and that there's no way that happens in the world. You don't go back to anything. You can't relive history in any way. We got to roll this back. Like good luck putting the toothpaste back in the tube.
That's true. I always say that to my children. Yeah. Words are like toothpaste. Once they're out, you ain't getting them back in.
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, you can't. And there's some things that have been changed in society that can't be undone without a very authoritarian regime and a whole different like change.
Yeah.
So, let's look at the way forward. Let's, how do you start something that's positive from where you are, rather than trying to roll back to something that you can't roll back to. Mm-hmm. Like what do you really value? What lessons have we learned since, ancient Roman times? What positive changes can we make? And so, it became a slogan in the Way of Men, but that's just become it's my Instagram handle. It's just like something that I've been doing for a long time because I'm always trying to look at the world in that way. Like what, I have a buddy right now who's super anti-voting and whatever. And I was like, well, that's cool. And I was there like 3 years ago. I was like 3 or 4 years ago. I was like,
it was kind of more like
voting stupid. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's pissing in the wind, whatever. But then it's like, well, you've actually ceded that territory now completely. And so if you don't care about the way society is evolving and you don't want to be involved in it in any way, then you've just accepted what's going to happen.
True.
And so, I feel like if you're going to make a positive response, you'd be like, well, we're alive right now. We are the men in our society right now. And if it's going downhill, it's kind of our job to get involved rather than just like these stupid politicians, they were screwing off. Well, they're going to screw you even more.
Yeah. And that's not new either. You bring that up in Becoming a Barbarian. Like, guys, crooked politicians have existed for thousands of years.
For real.
Corporations or these leaders of corporations, might have looked different. World Trade's been here for thousands of years too. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I think people bitch about today that they don't realize. Like this is just a part of the human behavior and experience.
Yeah, and the American project was very much because they knew that.
Right.
Like we know that things are going to go sideways. We know that dudes with too much money are going to get a little creepy sometimes, and they're going to do some stuff that doesn't benefit the other people, that just benefits them.
Right.
And because we've seen it happen over and over again. Mm-hmm. And we know that if we give X guy too much power, that's going to be bad. Mm-hmm. And let's create some checks and balances to keep that from getting out of hand. And what you're seeing in society right now is a lot of people who haven't, it's like they're ignoring that. And they're not realizing, like, oh yeah, well, Google cares about us. Yeah. Like Google's going to do the right thing. Yeah. We just give them all the power. Like, I mean, even now, I've gotten to the point where, like, Google Fiber is coming through my neighborhood. I'm like, they have enough of my shit.
Yeah.
Like they have control of enough of my
social media outlets too.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, so much power, so fast, and totally unchecked. And
and that's right.
I think there are a lot of us who realize how bad that could be.
Right.
And other people are like, no, they're doing what we want right now, so it's cool.
Right. And they want society, these government officials, the powers that be, and corporations, which are, you guys don't see the tie-in between corporate America and our government. And there might not be much hope for you,
Right.
Because they're in bed together. But you know, and you talk about this as well. You know, they're not big fans on you having an identity, a culture, specifically the white male culture.
Sure.
They don't want that.
Right.
They don't want you to have your own tribe, if you want to use that phrase, or club, or you know, we talked about it too in the last podcast episode, where there's less and less of these clubs like that our grandfathers were in, like the Lions Club.
Oh yeah.
You know, where that generation can impart their wisdom and their knowledge and their culture on the next generation, and that's dying.
Yeah, the only one that's really left is like the Masons.
Yeah, that's
Like
it.
they're the only ones that's still like an all male club.
Oh, the Masons.
None of them are politically correct, and they've all got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that should wake everybody up that's listening. Think of the reason why they don't want that, and you touch on it a lot in your books, and it's a scary thing, and that's one reason I love that Start the World, because we can start something now. We can impart something new. Maybe it's not getting together with the boys like our grandfathers did to play. I don't know, what did they play back then? Backgammon.
I don't know.
Talk about their wives and hunting and all that. Like, you know, it could look different based on today's fabric and what our interests are. But, you know, put down the freaking controller.
Yeah.
Quit playing Call of Duty.
I think fact checkers and community standards are something to be very mindful of, because they are starting to get a lot more power, like you say, and they have a great way to steer the direction of society and what people think.
Yeah, they can control what facts are. That's what's really scary. They can. We made up a thing, and now it's a fact, and now you're not saying the thing, so you don't have facts. Those.
I can verify that with a fact checker, though.
Yeah, right.
Well, they're changing
facts
words.
Contested. Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
History.
Well, words, that's something I've always been really, really sensitive to. As a writer, I really care about words. And I'll look at the root of word and where did it come from. And it's gotten to be a weird thing. Like now when I write, I will follow the full etymology. Like, what does that word mean 5,000 years ago?
Yeah.
You know, like I'll follow the whole thing up the chain. But what's really problematic is that is how they influence the world in a very subtle way, is that if you change the word and then it just catches on, and then it changes the way people think, because the way we use language changes the way that we think. And so I've gone hard against dudes. I think it came out of therapy culture. Everybody talks about vulnerability as a positive, and I was like, that's not real. Like that's like
kind of the opposite.
Making yourself vulnerable means easily to be. It makes
Manipulated,
can be wounded, and like that. Anyone who's concerned with any kind of tactical scenario is like, vulnerable is always bad.
I think the motivation behind that is someone was trying to get laid.
100%.
Someone was trying to get laid.
That is what so much of this stuff comes from.
Yeah.
Somebody like, well, you know, men need to be more vulnerable. I'm like, well,
Open up to me, sweetie.
Yeah, like, what do you mean by the, you know, like there's an agenda behind that. But now you have guys walking around being like, you know, I think it's important to be vulnerable, and they'll just be repeating that shit over and over again. And what they really mean is something else. What they're saying is like, they're almost mean it in a way that like courageous, like I need to put myself out there to take risks whatever. And I'm like, well, when you phrase it like that, those words actually already existed. You don't need to call it vulnerable.
No.
You know, like you're rephrasing something in a very feminine way. So that, you know, and I think it came because, you know, some chick they were hanging out with then was like, you know what, you need to be more vulnerable. And he's like, and they just kind of absorb that.
Your dad was really awful to you growing up. Open up to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. Your vulnerabilities, embrace them.
Yeah. And a lot of men are hesitant to do that because they're like, well, you're going to use that shit against me.
and they do.
And they do. You know, so, hey, you know, there is a time and a place, obviously, to share things, but like it's not always right out of the gate. And I think that that's one thing that men do really well, that, you know, that they're encouraged to open themselves up too much, too fast. And like, I mean, I've dudes who you hang out with, and they will not stop talking. They'll tell you every damn thing they're thinking about. Dudes, it's not like dudes don't talk about problems.
Yeah.
But you have to build that trust. You have to create a trust environment where like they feel comfortable talking about the things that are going on with them.
Okay, so those vulnerability people,
Yeah.
they are the same people that have made the term military grade somehow dirty when it's actually freaking awesome. Why do they do that? I don't agree with those people.
Well, yeah. Well, it's propaganda. I mean, that's what propaganda is. You change words, change perceptions.
I think they're fact checkers.
That trust thing's a really big, I think early on in your first book, you talk about the breakdown of effective groups, using military terminology, starting as far as like battalion all the way down to, what's like a small team, platoons down to
fire teams.
Fire teams, yeah. And the smaller the group, the bond is greater, right? And a lot of that has to do with this trust that you build up with that group, and you can only do that on an intimate level, getting to know them, whether you're out in the field doing shit together.
Right.
In this case, in the battlefield scenario, that bond is unbreakable. It's unshakable. You'll do anything for that person. And I feel that way, by the way, about our group here at Dead Air. We've got a small, tight-knit team, and it's unique because we don't work in this corporate environment, and we've built trust over at least specifically in my situation, the last year with Mike, and been able to share a lot of things that, we have common ground on, and that's also built upon that relationship, which in fact has made our team more unified, more effective, and so on. And I think that's another thing to take into account and consideration is, you brought it up in the making of a Barbarian as well, and that is, and along with the tribalism, there's a lot of layers here, guys. Sorry if I lost track here, but as a whole, I think society wants us to be, citizens of the world.
Right.
They don't want us, like you said in that, in the Becoming a Barbarian, they don't want us to have our own nationalities, our own identities. That's why I think there's an attack on patriotism.
Sure.
In America specifically today, or this like quote unquote arrogance about being American and world police and whatnot. And on top of that, boiling it all the way down to these small groups or lack of groups of men, I think that's tearing apart the fabric of any future that we might have to continue to have our freedoms and to be able to act out. I guess act out is the wrong way to put it, but like walk in the way of men.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot. I'm sorry.
We got nationalism. We got all kinds of stuff there. Yeah. Well, obviously the citizens of the world thing is obviously, I think, driven by commerce. And,
right.
And you have people at the top level who have investments everywhere. Like, so they're really devoted to land. Like, even, these fat cat robber barons or whatever they had in America, like, the reasons they had to create trust laws because they just were too good and too powerful. Mm-hmm. But those guys were still rooted in a place. They're in Carnegie in Pittsburgh or whatever. They were these big guys, but they were rooted in a place and they were rooted in a community and they had some relationships to that. But now you have guys that really can live anywhere and jet set around the world. Their investments are everywhere. And so they aren't loyal to any place. And your loyalty to a place is inconvenient for them.
Yes.
That
was the word I'm looking for. It's super inconvenient for them.
Yeah. I can make so much more money if I move this factory to Mexico. Mm-hmm. I don't have to care about you or your family or all these other people. I'll just move it to Mexico or move it to China or move it somewhere else because I'll make more money that way.
Mm-hmm. That's a psychological negative to having multiple dwellings. 4 houses, you'd have to be disconnected.
Yeah, you're rootless and you're not responsible to these people. I mean, if you live in a town and you're in the same place, I mean, you're like, well, that's really going to screw over Bob and da-da-da-da-da. You have this connection to this place, and these guys can live unattached to anything.
Right.
And so your attachment to things and to the people around you is very inconvenient for them. And so they've been downplaying it, all around the world for a long time. And the UN says things, tribalism is bad, and we're working against tribalism in like Afghanistan.
And you can't have tribalism and be politically correct too, because a part of being tribalistic is, having a loyalty to who you are and your identity and that group's identity.
Yeah.
And if you are unapologetic about that and embrace that, then that means there's going to be some element of, I don't want to use the word hate, but distaste or discomfort or whatever word you want to plug in there for another group or another tribe. And then when that happens, I feel like people get mixed up into the whole, well, that's racist or that's unaccepting, and you can't be that way. You need to accept everyone for who they are and what they are, and you can't have opinions. You can't not like somebody, or I mean, you even see that with law enforcement. Like, if you're going to wear the uniform of a thug, regardless of the brand of thug,
right,
you're going to get labeled a thug. Being able to read some by the book, cover of their book, right? I think is the way you put it, is important.
Well, I think you mentioned it a while ago. The cop was hassling you.
Yeah. Well,
if you were wearing leather and in a bicycle, and you on a bike.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, you're like, is this guy gonna be a hassle? Is this gonna be a problem? We don't want any of that around here.
Right. Because I'm dressing like that.
Yeah. So same deal.
Right.
You're throwing off a vibe that's setting it. Communicating. Clothes are all about communication.
Right.
And so you're communicating with a bunch of you're sending a message. And so they're going to respond to that. And I mean, the tribal has been so hairy, that issue, because I think the way America is set up, there's freedom, and you can free associate. Like that's what freedom means to me. Is like, well, even if those dudes, if I don't like them, they should be free to pick their own community and hang out with whoever they want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, just don't get in my business, and we're not going to get in your business.
Don't step on snake.
Yeah.
I'm 100% for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for that. And so if you want to have different communities with different values, I mean, we live in Utah. If the Mormons want to be like, hey, we don't want any drinking in this area, that's cool. I mean, they should be able to do that.
Right.
If I can have an area where I can have drink over here, that'd be cool.
Right.
But if you can control your area.
Right. Then there's the attack on religion.
Yeah.
Right now, or even capitalism. Right. Capitalism is important, right? And you can vote with your dollars.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't want to do something in a diverse environment, say it's cupcakes. Like the guy up in Colorado that was completely attacked. He's got his right to do that. Will that hurt his business? Probably.
Yeah.
Still his business, though.
It's still his business, right? But there's this attack on the thought police and the word police, and it's like, hey, you're not allowed to believe that your religion is supreme, or you can't. Or you don't, in your belief system, you don't accept this type of person or these types of actions or whatever because it's bigoted.
Yeah. Well, and that's, if you really believe in any religion, there are boundaries,
right?
Of if you have any integrity at all, and what you actually believe in, there are boundaries of things that you're willing to do and not willing to do.
Unless you're in the bonobo society and there's the Unitarian, or what is it? This is this new age thing going on that's pretty popular within our culture, at least in our generation. Right. A lot of people are just kind of free to feel and
well, it's the kind of new age, whatever man kind of deal, because that's what's really tricky, and that's one of the things I talk about a little bit in Fire in the Dark, and Nietzsche actually talked about it years ago, and then it's all coming to fruition right now. Yes. Basically the collapse of all the hierarchies of value. And they don't want you to have values. They want to determine the values and then move the goalposts all the time. This is what's trending on Twitter this week, so this is what everybody cares about.
Right.
And then we'll just move the goalposts when we want them to care about something else.
Right.
Because if you're actually rooted, in the same way being rooted in a space is something, being rooted in a set of values that are unchanging is a threat to them, because they want to be able to change them.
Yeah.
And them is like a big conspiracy theory thing, but it's, if you've ever worked in a big corporate company, you know how decisions are made. Like, well, that's not convenient. That we could make more money if we do that. I mean, it's not like it's not like 10 guys sitting in a room figuring out how things are going to go.
The Illuminati.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe I'm a fool. I'll believe anything at this point. Like this past year is like anything's possible. I don't know.
Man, UFOs.
Maybe they are aliens. I don't know. But like, yeah, I mean, but what they want is a collapse of all hierarchies of value. And if you have this is right and this is wrong, and you're very firm about that, that's a problem.
Exactly. And the way you portrayed it earlier in this discussion about using words, and that's a subtle way for them to come in and change things right before our very eyes. One of the examples you brought up was what courage means today.
Yeah.
And how loosely it's used, and how where it was derived. I believe that's what it was. Courage, correct? In your first book, you broke it down.
Probably. I mean, honor is also a thing too.
Or maybe it was honor.
Maybe it was honor, because honor can mean any damn thing.
Right.
And honor's like, that's good.
Yeah.
Like we honor you for that thing that
Right.
you did. Thanks for great customer service. We're honoring
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, historically, honor used to be, if someone's invoking your honor, something bad's about to go down.
Right.
Like
You're gonna lose something like your life.
Yeah, you're going to have to actually stand up for yourself, or stand up for your honor, or protect it. It was a very protected thing.
Or like the samurai take your own life,
type
of thing.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. We reached 60 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Marcus is given.
That doesn't mean we have to stop.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what that meant. I was like, oh shit, I just got into the whole complexity of honor.
Yes. Now we fight. Pick your weapon. I choose the Russian BMP.
You don't want to fight Marcus.
Yeah.
No, I really don't.
Trust me.
There's been a couple of podcasts that I've been nervous leading up to episode 16. The first one was Jack Carr. He's a very brilliant man.
Yep.
And driven. Really
well spoken. I got pretty nervous just because of the type of guy he was. And the second one is definitely this one. I was pretty nervous leading in because I've been so buried in your books.
Right.
And you've exposed a lot of, I'm going to use the word vulnerabilities in my own life that I am discomforted by, that I want to correct. That I felt like I was in step with some of the ways that the wrong directions that our society has gone leading up to this point.
Right.
So kind of that self-evaluation has happened. So it definitely made me a little nervous just because I was like, man, this guy, I feel like he's figured it out.
I just did math.
Yeah.
I did a math problem, really. That's what a lot of philosophy really is, just math. Like, is it always this? And if it isn't that, then what is it always? And you just do the equation of breaking it down. And so I did a lot of math. And then I'm just a fucking guy. I mean, I got to figure stuff out and have problems like everybody else and, figure out, I should probably be doing more about that. And also, what do I care about? What's my real job?
Yeah.
Like you said, on the Mr. scale from Mr. Rogers to Richard T. I'm not on Jack Carr's level.
Yeah.
I'm not on the Jocko Willink level, and I never will be. And so where do I fit in that?
I feel like you should, guys. I mean, I don't know, man. We could start a movement. That's how after that first book, after it closed, I was like, damn it, what's the next one?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I got pretty pumped because I really do feel like, and I really want everyone that's listening to this to go in and check. What's your website called?
Jack-Donovan.com.
I'm going to put the link in our description. Jack-Donovan.com.
Yeah.
And then Start the World is your Instagram page.
Yeah.
Guys, go check out his books. If you don't read at least the first one or audio it, I'll be very disappointed in you because you're missing out, especially the dudes that are listening. I think we might have one mom that listens. Ernie's mom.
Yeah, Ernie said that his mother would listen, and we have a female listener.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's wonderful.
I'm going to shout out Ernie's mom. Thank you for all the lovely compliments. I'm glad that you like listening to us. So,
hey, before we go, we brushed over a very important thing.
Oh, our sponsor.
Well, we've moved from beverage, but I think we should broach that a little bit. 7-Eleven. Now, they don't claim it to be...
In the hood, it's 7-Lemon.
That may be. But here it's 7-Eleven.
Okay.
They don't claim it to be spring water, but it is purified water. I believe it to be, from the labeling, maybe Good Day water rebranded. But hey, when 7-Eleven calls, you answer the phone. Plus, we still have the fine folks at Arrowhead.
Yeah, they were cool enough to not care about any other water.
And we've moved into the meat category.
The meat category. Let me tell you
food.
guys. I mean, well, we've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, but I pulled it off. Vienna sausage.
It's a dream come true for us.
It is. It is packed full of terrible fats. You got your trans fat, your saturated fats. So this is a real treat for me because I don't really take part in that.
That's a good source of protein.
7 grams of protein.
That's good, right?
From the old country.
Yes.
It's Vienna sausage.
I'm going to crack it open. This will be the first time I've eaten on the podcast. Hold on.
Don't we need crackers or something?
No.
You want a fork? No?
I feel like I need man, I am destroying this Vienna sausage.
Maybe we should make a rule no eating on the podcast. That's not a knife.
Oh, I just sliced that one up.
There you go.
I'm going to drink some of the Vienna juice.
Vienna juice.
Oh, that's salty. That wasn't a good idea.
I don't think that's right.
No, I've never seen anyone do that.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Vienna sausage, Arizona water.
7-Eleven, it's Arrowhead water.
Oops, sorry. Arrowhead water. We just lost that sponsorship.
Oh, we forgot our musket. We gave our musket powder away.
That's true. Oh, man, this was awesome.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being on.
Yeah.
No problem. No
You've
problem.
raised the bar yet again. I didn't think we would get a guest much better than, I don't mean this negatively because I love him, but our UPS guy. I thought maybe that would be the highlight starting out. He's a good dude.
He is, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we had UPS on the episode, on one of our earlier episodes.
FedEx.
No, it was UPS. Remember, he came in and brought the mask.
I thought it was FedEx.
No, he even sat down. Trent, remember that episode?
Are you sure it was UPS?
Guys, don't be a bonobo. Make sure you check out Jack Donovan's books. Let us know what you think. If you've already read them, let us know what you think. Go follow him at Start the World. And I'm excited to bend your ear more. I hope that you've got some more time because I'm not done talking to you.
All right.
Rich has been a kid at Christmas.
I really have. I can't wait to finish the. Guys, so this even surprised my wife. I'll end with this. You know, I'm not really a binger on things. And especially when it comes to reading material, and I was not able to stop. So if that tells you guys something about it, and the becoming a barbarian is the same scenario. I think everyone who's listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube will know exactly what I'm talking about when you crack open the book. So, thanks again.
No problem.
Okay, and have a nice rest of the week.
Yeah, don't forget to get your Vienna sausage.
And wash it down. Wash it
Yeah,
down.
with some water, because after all that salt, you're going to need some water. And so what better place to get it than 7-Eleven?
Yeah, 7-Lemon.
This is what we're saying.
All right, guys, have a good week.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with all your home slicers.